Hey family, welcome back to my channel. So to start my favorite pastry, which is meat pie, I'm going to start with the filling. For the filling, I'm going to be using some salt and pepper, some diced potatoes, mixed vegetables. You can definitely choose what you want. I use suya seasoning, which is optional, and then chopped onions, as well as the ground or minced meat. So the meat I'm using is ground meat, so what I have to do is mash it up and break it up so that way the meat cooks all around and I have no lumps or clumps left uncooked. And so first I fry up some onions, and then I also add my mixed vegetables here and fry it all together. And then I actually season it while it's frying so that the onions can really soak in the seasoning. So I add some pepper. This is also optional to add the dry pepper or suya seasoning, but I like to add that into the beef so it gives it some personality. So that's what I'm doing here, just seasoning it, and then I add in the meat, and you can see I'm still trying to break it up so that it's not so clumpy. And basically you just keep doing that and stirring it on medium heat until you can see that the meat is starting to brown and starting to cook. And then I pour in the diced potatoes. Then I add a little bit of water, and then I just cover the pot and allow that to cook for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes until the potatoes are soft. So while that's cooking, I prepare the pastry, and all you need for the pastry is flour and margarine or butter and a little bit of salt. I like to add the salt to give the pastry some personality and just brings out the taste a little bit more. Baking soda is very optional. I actually prefer not to use baking soda anymore because it just kind of ruins the pastry a little bit, but in this video I use baking soda, but you can actually definitely cut out the baking soda and just use your all-purpose flour and margarine. If you use butter, you'd have to use a little less quantity of butter because butter is heavier. Again, the ratio of flour to butter that I use is 2:1. So to get the meat feeling all nice and moist and kind of stay together, I use a thickener, which is just flour and water. So you mix the flour and water into a nice paste, which you're going to add into the meat that's cooking. So that just kind of helps the minced meat to stick together, and it's easier to serve into the pie, and also it makes it kind of helps to retain the moisture when you are baking the pies. Once you've mixed up the thickener, just pour it into the meat pie filling, and that will kind of just helps to combine it and makes it less runny. And then once that's done, I just check again for the seasoning and make sure that it's all good, it looks moist. And someone is trying to steal my food. You can see that's my sister just trying to get a piece. Yeah, there we go. So I just leave that on to steam a little, and once it's ready I pour it into a strainer to get rid of the excess oil in the filling. And then it's time to mix the pastry. So all I'm doing is using my fingertips to combine the flour and the butter, and this is, for me, is like the most fun part of this whole process because you know, it's dry, it's not like messy at this point. It's fun. It's fun to mix flour and butter, and it smells really nice as well. The butter and the flour combination is so good. Sometimes I'm tempted to just eat some of that as it is. So you just combine that until there's no white flour left, and it's all like crumbly, and you know, it looks like breadcrumbs or something like that. Once that's done, we add in some water, and I usually just add lukewarm water or cold water, and you just add little trickles per time and mix and combine. And the water is really just the binding agent here between the butter and the flour. So I just add a little, I combine it, and if I feel like there's still a lot of flour that needs to be combined with the butter, I add a little bit more water, and only do this in little bits so that you don't pour too much water. And once that's put together and I feel like there's enough water to knead, and you know, it's like a nice ball, I will go ahead and begin to knead this on the countertop. So I typically like to divide my dry butter and flour mixture into two when it's time to mix with water into and combine it into like my dough, just so I have like more controlled quantity per time that I'm working with. So the kneading is just to make sure that every part of the butter and the flour is combined, as well as the water as well. And you don't need to knead this for hours and hours. Just you know, just enough to make sure that it's all combined and to a nice thickness as needed. So once I've rolled out the dough, and it's, yeah, you can see the thickness is not too flat, I use my quality street lid to cut out circular pieces. And I like this lid because the hexagon top is like really good grip for my hands. Make sure to have your pan buttered, you know, yeah, so that the meat pies don't stick to the pan. And sometimes I just like to press my circle a little flatter, and just, you know, portion some meat onto the middle of it and fold that. And what I like to do is use the side of my little finger to kind of create a seam or a seal. And I'm going to just show you how I do that. Just make sure not to overfill the pies. And yeah, so I just kind of form it, and then for the final seal I use a fork to create the final seal, which is kind of also a aesthetic for the pie. And that just ensures that the filling inside the pie doesn't come spilling out. And just, you know, kind of shape it, and then I pierce on the top of the pies for some ventilation and for some aesthetics as well. And just arrange that in the pan, and it's ready to bake. Alrighty, so the last step here is glazing, and you just need 1 egg, whisk it, and just brush that all over the pies, and this gives it a nice golden glossy look once it's baked. And that is it. So I put that in the oven at 350 degrees, and I just leave that and watch it until it starts turning a nice golden brown, and you can smell the meat, the pies being cooked. I cook it for at least 20-30 minutes. I usually don't know exactly when it's ready. The meat's cooked. All that needs to be cooked really is the pastry. So that's the finished product, and yes, moist on the inside, crunchy on the outside, just how I like it. It's my favorite pastry, my favorite one to make, and I hope I helped you guys make some for yourself as well. And yeah, Merry Christmas guys. Bye.